we start Luis Fernandez today. We find out, we get breaking news that Duke basketball guard Jeremy Roach will be back in Durham for the 2023-24 season. The floor is yours. Your thoughts, Luis, on this breaking news here on this Monday.
Well, there's a reason we record on Mondays, and I feel like it's because sometimes you have things like this happen right before we get ready to get started with, news happening. Jeremy Roach deciding to come back. They already had so much returning. Duke was in a really good position, and now bringing back Jeremy Roach, so you have your top 4 scorers back with Filipowski, with Proctor, with Roach, with Mark Mitchell. And you have almost all of your starters, 4 of your 5 starters, essentially. The vast majority of your starts throughout the course of the season. It's one of those things where the rich get richer. Duke has an opportunity now to have a really special season. There were already going to be a lot of expectations before this Jeremy Roach decision. And now he decides to come back, and you continue to have a veteran leader there who's going into his senior year. Someone who can run the offense, someone who's going to be able to create those shots that are a little bit harder. Essentially the way I look, one of the best things that Roach was able to do this year was to be that guy who would kind of dribble, penetrate, pull up, had those mid-range shots where you go, oh, man, how do those go in? Someone who can kind of create offense when the offense isn't necessarily working for Duke. So it's amazing. It's going to be so good for the Blue Devils. I think they're already. I feel like the question we should be asking is, will Duke be preseason number 1? That's kind of where we're at. I know a lot of those way too early top 25s. I saw them, in the top 5. Just name recognition, name brand, the players who are coming back. It really would not surprise me to see Duke be preseason number 1, if not top 3.
Let me piggyback off this too, Luis. It's not just the 4 players that are coming back that you mentioned that will likely be starters. You also have a loaded recruiting class coming in. You have the number 2 recruiting class in the country. So how does Jared McCain, Sean Stewart, TJ Power, Caleb Foster get into the mix with this Blue Devils roster? This is where I caution you if you're a Duke Blue Devils fan, though, because we were probably saying a lot of the same things 1 year ago about the North Carolina Tar Heels, and that you had 4 of your 5 starters coming back off that championship team that made a championship appearance, and then they don't even make the NCAA tournament. So it's nice to have that continuity, especially getting the guard play in March. We talk about that when it comes to the conference tournaments, March Madness, Luis. Learn a lesson from your arch rival down the road, though, and that even though that this is a great news if you're a Duke Blue Devils fan, nothing is given for the upcoming season. It's the only point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? Because at least with that UNC team, you saw how deep of a run they made the year before. And a lot of that run, I think we've learned, was just a little bit of getting hot at the right time. But with this Duke team, they didn't go as far, losing to Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. So, you're already going to start thinking about March, even though it's May of, the year before. So it's going to be, how does this Duke team come together over that time? John Shire, I think that there was definitely pressure on him last year, but I do feel like everyone was like, hey, let's see how things go, give him an opportunity to kind of transition into it. And he had a lot of success, and he did really well last year. And so now just the expectations will continue to ratchet up, and the pressure is going to be on, but that's Duke. You know what I mean? Like that's what Duke is. They have those expectations. They have that pressure all the time. So I don't think it's going to affect them too much. It's just going to be, how does this team come together?
I thought that Roach was key in that 2022 Final Four run as well. So he has a lot of experience in big time games for the Blue Devils. His experience alone will be a benefit to this Blue Devils roster.
Well, and I think too, it's going to be so many of those key contributors last year, like Cal Filipowski being a freshman. What does he do this year? How does he elevate his game? I think really my only concern with Duke at this point is just how do they adjust without having Derek Lively. Their defense was such a critical part of who they were last year, and he was pretty he elevated everything. We saw that very first Duke UNC game, the way he just absolutely took over. So how do you replace that defensive production? But I mean, in terms of an offensive production, I am not concerned about this Duke team. I think they're going to be scoring a lot of points. It's just how do all the pieces fit together, because there's a lot of depth and there is a lot of talent.
Let me say this very facetiously. I'm curious if Lively at any point, whatever team ends up drafting him, if he sees the Blue Devils go on a run and just wonder, should have I stayed back at school for one more year? But we know he's going to go and accomplish his NBA dreams, Lewis. I say that very facetiously.
Yeah, he's gonna be okay. He's gonna get somewhere and be just fine.